Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome Attorney General of the great state of Oklahoma and candidate for governor, Gentner Drummond, to the podcast. Sir, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us. I know you're crisscrossing the state with 1 week to go before the Republican primary runoff.
Thank you, Matt. Happy to be on the podcast.
Well, great. Let's give the viewers an inside look at who Gentner Drummond is and maybe some behind-the-scenes stuff on the campaign. Why don't you just first tell us, if you were not the Attorney General and you were not running for governor, who is Gentner Drummond?
I am a rancher and a banker and a lawyer. Hominy, east of Hominy on our cattle ranch, is my home, where I grew up, where I've raised my children, where Wendy and I enjoy our 7 grandchildren, and love cattle ranching. We're in the tail end of hay season right now. We put up almost 4,000 round bales and ready for the temperature to break. We did get an inch of rain yesterday, though, so that was a blessing for sure. But I also love banking industry, and I love the practice of law. It's a great mix. But more than anything, I'm proudest of being the grandfather to 7 delightful grandchildren, with an 8th due in December.
Fantastic. Well, I enjoyed some delicious Drummond ground beef for lunch with some vegetables mixed in. It's fantastic. Great operation that you have there. You have a fantastic story that most candidates running for public office don't have about why you decided to pursue public service. And I know it dates back a long time. Why don't you tell us, what was the impetus for even thinking about serving the public in office?
It has really always been in my forethought. So when I was a 14-year-old, my maternal grandfather sat me down and he said, "Gentner, you're the oldest of 65 in your generation of Drummonds in Osage County. You guys have been here since 1896, and I want you to make me 2 promises. One, I want you to serve in the military because none of your forebears have. You all are ranchers. You don't get drafted. You stay on the ranch and raise beef cattle and wheat. But get out of the military after you've served and get back here to Osage County, raise your children. When they're all grown, I want you to go back and serve the state as governor." We shook hands. He told me I was qualified. I'd be there, live this life, kind of put me on the trajectory. And honest to goodness, Matt, that has been the path that I've been on for the last 48 years. So after Oklahoma State, took a commission in the Air Force, went to flight school, having never flown before, likened flying jets to riding a horse, graduated at the top of my class, got to fly the F-15 for 8 years, culminating in the Gulf War. And then 30 years of law practice and building a family and a ranch and a bank. And then it was my opportunity to re-enter and fulfill the second half of that promise. So thinking I should probably go into where I'm a subject matter expert, I ran for Attorney General and have served in that capacity for 3.5 years. And now I'm ready to serve the state as governor.
Well, you know, sir, I've been doing this for 25, 26 years now, working on campaigns. And I've worked with candidates who have had this vision that they want to run for office. And they usually are, they say whatever it takes to get elected. You've had this vision since you're 14 about running for office, yet you drive me kind of crazy sometimes because you don't stick to the talking points. So, tell me a little bit about, what makes Gentner Drummond tick, that you don't necessarily care what the political consultancy has to say. You're going to do what you think is right. And you're wired a little differently, I think, than a lot of candidates I work with.
My disadvantage is I'm a mature candidate. Right. So a lot of people run in the craziness of life when they've got, a wife and children or husband and children and, going to ballet and baseball practice and the like. And you're just strung out, and you're also still building your place in this world. My grandfather was wise. Wait until all of your children are grown. Now, we have 6 children and they're all married. And yes, no child ever leaves home, really. But they're all independent and they're well adjusted. But in those last 48 years since that promise to today, I know who I am. And I will tell you the one thing that I don't talk about. Having fought in combat, having an F-15 strapped to my back, flying 6.5 hours, 7 hours at a time, deep into Iraq, being shot at literally thousands of times. Everything is in perspective. Mm-hmm. As an attorney, as a banker, as a rancher, as a father, as a grandfather, as your attorney general, as a candidate for governor, nobody is shooting at me.
Yeah,
and that's true. That is a skill set that I know drives you crazy, that I don't get ruffled, and I know who I am. If you think about a crucible, and let's say our body is in that crucible, going through combat, all the unnecessary was burned off. And I know who I am. And I'm at peace with who I am. Now, does it drive you crazy? Yes, it does. Because
and also it's also what I love. I mean, it's so refreshing because I'll ask you sometimes, well, Gentner, why did you say that? And you're like, well, they asked me the question. I'm going to answer it honestly. And like, I appreciate that, but it also sometimes, doesn't make the certain wings of our party happy with you. But I will have to say this. You are an absolute leader, and I've seen it throughout this campaign. It's been 20 months now. We've been on the campaign trail together.
Yes.
And we've had some highs and we've had some lows, and I believe we have great momentum going into Election Day. But you have always been the steady leader. You've never been rattled. There's been $10+ million spent against you, and you've always been the true center of the campaign, the North Star, saying, this is where we're going, this is what I'm doing. And I appreciate that big time about you. And I think that's why you're going to be a great governor if we win Tuesday.
Thank you. I mean, the one thing I'm unwilling to compromise is my integrity. And I'm committed to 4 million Oklahomans, not the political elite, not the rich, not those that look like me and talk like me, but all Oklahomans. And that's what we've just not had that since Henry Bellman. And I will tell you, I don't want people to say, it actually chafes me when people call me a politician. I am not a politician. You know that. I am a horrible politician. I aspire to be a statesman. And that's what I think I've been as Attorney General, and that's what I aspire to be as your governor.
Well, I love that. So you have the advantage of not having young kids at home, but there's still incredible challenges. Oklahoma's a big state, 77 counties across a large landmass. Like, what would you say is the most difficult challenge running for office, especially having done this now since January of last year?
I am a duly elected Attorney General. I refuse to shortchange my role as the chief legal officer for the state of Oklahoma. So I am all in for Oklahoma as the Attorney General, and I do not prioritize being a candidate for governor. Now, has that gotten in the way? Yes, it's been in the way. Do I want to cut a corner? I mean, it's tempting. But at the end of the day, I refuse to shortchange Oklahomans. It's been a long time since we've had an Attorney General as qualified as I am, and I'm engaged. And you know that, and it's distracting on the campaign. So anytime we're traveling around the state, I am the Attorney General in the backseat of that Suburban until I get out to engage in a political setting. So it's important to me that Oklahoma gets a good 40 to 50 hours of my time every week as the AG, and what's left over we give to the campaign.
Absolutely. What would you say is the biggest misconception that your detractors have about you?
You know, it's funny when you run for office, you find out what people think. And then it's also the other discouraging thing is you see how low people will go. So, the other campaign they call me a Democrat, a rhino, a Biden donor. These things are all lies. I've never given to Biden. I am not a Democrat. I am a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. I'm in more of the mold of a Reagan Republican than anything else, but I'm unafraid to be that. That's exactly reflective of the core values of Oklahoma. So it is disheartening. It's disheartening whenever they attack me because if I'm explaining that, we're losing. So I don't explain it. I just hold my head up. Surely I've given to a handful of Democrats over the years, customers of the law firm or the bank or somebody with whom I've done business. But overall, I've given over $250,000 to Republican candidates. So I'm a Republican.
The last question I have before we get to the shotgun 9, if you will, is I'd love for you to finish this sentence. When I'm elected governor, I hope people eventually say I was the kind of leader who blank.
Who put Oklahoma first every single time.
Powerful. Well, let's get it done on August 25th. These questions, Gentner, I want to go really fast. I know you're not a golfer, but I am, and oftentimes you'll play, and we'll be sitting around after, and we're like, we played bad. Let's go play another 9 holes, and let's just go play fast before it gets dark. So 9 quick questions, quick answers. The first one, the Sooners or the Pokes?
Pokes.
See, you're not even being political here. Most people are like, oh, I'll cheer for the Pokes. I went to Oklahoma State, but I got to cheer for Oklahoma too. So I like that. I like how you just straight up answered that. Do you prefer early mornings or late nights?
I love watching the sunrise, but I will tell you also love watching the sunset on the ranch. So I'm an early morning guy for sure.
All right. Favorite restaurant in Oklahoma?
My good friend Tim Inman owns Stone Horse Cafe in Utica Square of Tulsa, and I love that restaurant like nothing else.
It's fantastic. All right. Favorite Oklahoma politician of all time?
Henry Bellman.
What? Explain that. Our listeners, probably nobody's heard of Henry Bellman unless they're from Oklahoma and of a certain age. So tell us a little bit about him.
He was a farmer statesman. He grew up in the country. He was hard scrabble, unafraid to work. We've not had a governor that's worked harder for Oklahoma since Henry Bauman. Now I'm going to eclipse that, but he was it. And then he came in when it was a predominantly Democratic state, elected as a Republican because Democrats, independents, and Republicans respected him, and he governed our state with a steady hand, made hard decisions that got him out of step with his own party and out of step with the Democrats. But he always put Oklahoma first, and I will tell you, I've always admired him, and I aspire to be just like him.
So you're campaigning to be the governor, but what was the first job that you ever had?
I grew up on a cattle ranch, and my earliest recollection is in the hayfields, too small at 7 to pick up the bale, but I was on the bed of that hay truck, dragging the bales into position so somebody stronger could throw them in the stack. So from 7 on, I have these recollections of being hayfield and then wheat fields. At 10, I was driving a feed truck. Shortly thereafter, I was pulling a trailer. When I drove in to take my driver's test at 16, I'd been living independently for 2 years. And after the police chief said, "Well, Gentner, what are you doing here today?" I go, "I'm here for my driver's license." He goes, "You've been driving under my nose for the last 2 years going to high school?" I go, "Yes, sir." So, I mean, I've always been working, and it's just in my DNA. So to give the state 40, 45 hours and give the campaign 20, 25 hours a week is nothing. And I know that will translate beautifully in the governor's office where it is demanding, and we need a candidate who can start early, stay on point all day long, and finish hard late in the evening. And that's who I am.
Love it. All right, if Wendy was to describe you with one word, what's that word?
Well, today we did a couples interview at News Channel 9, and she used something I was actually flattered to hear. She said that I'm the most generous man she knows, and that is kind to hear that from my partner. We are, in fact, very generous with our time and our talents and our treasures across Oklahoma, and I will continue that.
I can attest to that as well. Fantastic. Oklahoma, kind of a fun question here. Oklahoma punches above its weight when it comes to music. So many great artists and bands have come out of the state of Oklahoma. So who would you say is your favorite Oklahoma musician?
I got to tell you, I grew up with Garth Brooks. We're peers. He's just been awesome for Oklahoma, a great ambassador.
Fantastic. Best concert I've ever been to in Fayetteville, Arkansas with Garth a couple years ago. And I've been to probably 100 concerts in my life. There's not even a close second. I mean, Garth is just a whole other level. All right, if someone is coming to Oklahoma for the very first time, what is just the one thing they have to see or experience?
They need to be in the middle of the country on a cool summer evening when the sun sets on a long horizon and just enjoy God's beauty.
The sunsets here are just otherworldly good.
They're awesome.
Yeah. All right, last question, and it's a golf podcast, so we ask this to everybody that comes on. I know you're not a golfer, but if you had to play a round of golf and spend 4 hours with a politician, a celebrity, and a professional golfer, who would you choose? Living or dead, who would you choose to play that round of golf with?
Oh, my goodness gracious. I'd have to say Coach Switzer. He's
Okay.
a politician and an athlete and a pro golfer, I'm sure. There you go. Every time I'm with him, his anecdotes just crack me up. So even though I'm an OSU boy, I deeply value what Coach Switzer has done for Oklahoma. OU, he's even made OSU be better, and for sure, my favorite professional team, the Dallas Cowboys.
That's great. And he's endorsed your candidacy for governor.
He has.
Fantastic.
I'm very proud.
Well, Gentner, we're going to close this out by showing your final TV ad. You've been campaigning for 20 months, but this race is close. It's coming down to the wire, and oftentimes the last thing that people see before they go vote will make an impact. So I want people to see your final ad. And is there anything you want to say about this ad or about your candidacy in general before we close this out?
There are politicians, and then there are statesmen, and my words matter. My integrity matters to me. And what we try to convey in this last ad is that I will lead this state, always putting Oklahoma first. And that although people may not agree with me every time, they can truly trust me 100% of the time.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Now is not the time for weakness. Mike Mazie has shown he can be pushed around. I've been a fighter my entire life. And while Mike Mazie has lied about his record and his plans, I've given you something different. Honest, serious, sober, leadership. You may not always agree with me, but you can know I'll tell you the truth. I'm Gentner Drummond. Oklahoma deserves a governor you can trust will fight for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us candidate for insurance commissioner of the state of Oklahoma, Republican candidate Bob Sullivan, running in a Republican primary runoff election day, just 6 days away, August 25th. We're recording this on August the 19th. Bob, thank you for taking the time to join us. I know you've been just going and, all over the state of Oklahoma. So how are you doing today?
Man, doing great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, we've been all over the place, all of Northeast Oklahoma today.
Fantastic. And it's nice and cool out there. I'm sure it's just great, right? 107 for those of you outside of the state of Oklahoma. It's probably the hottest place in North America this week. So it's
love it.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's get into it, Bob. Before we talk politics, forget that you're a candidate for office. Tell us, who is Bob Sullivan apart from running for office?
Bob Sullivan. I spend a lot of my time with my family. Try to spend a little bit of time hitting the golf ball every now and again. But throughout my career, throughout my adult life, I've tried to be a servant to others. I spent many, many years and still continue to serve on a lot of nonprofit boards and support great charities and people who help people in the state of Oklahoma, whether that's runaway and homeless youth or after-school programs for disadvantaged kids here in the Tulsa metro area, helping out my church, all the fun stuff that gives you an opportunity to serve others. That fills my cup. And that's something that I've always had near and dear to my heart since I was a kid. I mean, I grew up in the Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. So service above self and servant leadership is who I am.
That's fantastic. So why don't you tell us, what was the first moment that you had this decision that I want to run for office? What sparked you wanting to run for state insurance commissioner?
Well, it started with many, many years of running like hell away from the idea of running for office. People come up to me in Rotary Club meeting, man, you ought to get involved in politics. You ought to put yourself out there and serve the people in that capacity. And I'm like, no. I've got a business to build. I got a family to feed. I got things to do. And then, one night, like many people, once you get to a certain age and have a lot of responsibilities on your plate, sometimes you can't sleep at night. So I'm up at 4 a.m. scrolling through social media, watching something on TV, just trying to make myself fall asleep. And for some reason, I got to looking at the qualifications and the requirements and the responsibilities for a couple of elected offices. And I really don't know what drew me to that page, but I'm flipping through the schedules for candidacy and how all that works and came across, the requirements for state insurance commissioner in Oklahoma. And okay, I meet all of these qualifications. And then the last one on the affidavit you sign is, you got to be wholly disinterested and disconnected from insurance companies, agencies. You can't hold any investments, so on and so forth. I'm like, man, that seems really dumb. I don't want to sell my agency. I don't want to quit working with my clients. I don't want to, give up being an agent because I love it. I love serving my clients and love helping them manage risk. So I closed the tab. And the next morning I walk into my office where I'm sitting right now, and sitting right over here to my right on the corner is some mail for our current insurance commissioner that got misdelivered. And I said, man, that's an incredible coincidence. So I drive it up the road to the OID office, which is just up the street from my office. And lo and behold, it's in the very office building where I started my career 18, 20 years ago as an underwriter for Hanover, and still knew the people in the building. And finally have a phone call with a mutual friend of ours who's been in the political sphere, been in office, held office here in Oklahoma, and was asking him about some, other down ballot races, state senate, state rep, that kind of thing. And he said to me what some other people have said before too. He said, Bob, you really ought to consider running for state insurance commissioner. I've learned more about insurance serving cupcakes at our kids' birthday parties than I have in my whole career as an adult and even in the legislature. So you ought to think and pray about that. So we did. And, obviously the next conversation is with my wife, and her response floored me most of all. When I brought up the idea, her response was, frankly, I'm surprised we haven't had this conversation sooner in our 14-year marriage. And if that's what God's calling you to do, then I got your back.
That's awesome.
And I was expecting a hard no, a very quick and hard no. And a reminder of that conversation from time to time throughout the campaign when I'm getting home at midnight or later, that, you said, if God wants me to do this, then you got my back. So...
I think those are the kind of the things. I'm not one of these Christians that believe that God comes down and audibly speaks to us the way he spoke to Moses, at the burning bush or whatever. But these little indicators, these little green lights, if you will, that you think your wife's going to be against it, but she's for it. And I honestly think about this as a green light for you. I get a call from our mutual friend. He's like, hey, there's this guy, and I think he'd be perfect for insurance commissioner. He wants to run maybe for state rep, but I told him, you'd be a great state rep, but somebody with your expertise needs to be in the insurance commissioner's office. He'd be perfect, Matt. I'm telling you, he'd be perfect. I'm like, what's his name? And he's like, Bob Sullivan. I said, I know Bob Sullivan. We're golfing buddies at Tour Quality. I know he worked in insurance, but we don't talk insurance. We talk golf. That's all we've ever talked. So that was quite another green light, I think, because it's a hard office to recruit a candidate for, because there's not a lot of people. Now, there are a lot of qualifications for being the insurance commissioner. One of them is not that you actually have to be a resident of the state of Oklahoma, but I'll save that discussion for another day. Voters can decide for themselves if that's important or not. But Bob, tell us, I think people probably have a general idea of what an insurance commissioner does, but get into the weeds a little bit about what actually the role of the insurance commissioner is in Oklahoma.
So, first and foremost, the insurance commissioner, I think in terms of vision and mission, is to be the advocate for the consumer in the state of Oklahoma, because insurance is a lopsided board. Insurance policies are built and formulated by insurance companies for the benefit of their shareholders and stockholders, and not necessarily tilted to the benefit of the policyholders. So the insurance commissioner exists to be that advocate to balance the scales. But beyond that, making sure that insurance companies are financially solvent, able to pay their claims. And I think most importantly, that they do pay their claims when they're required to by their own policy language, and that they behave themselves and treat Oklahomans with respect and don't make their lives unduly difficult throughout that claims process. So every insurance product that exists in the state of Oklahoma falls under the purview of the Oklahoma Insurance Commissioner and Insurance Department. It also regulates some more obscure things like bail bondsmen and the licensing of them, property appraisers and the licensing of them, and some other, various and sundry things that people wouldn't commonly associate with insurance and the insurance commissioner's office.
Okay, so people, I think, maybe have an idea of what it takes to run for office, but why don't you go ahead and tell us, what's been the absolute hardest thing for you running for office, and maybe also what's been the most fun thing running for office?
So definitely the hardest thing is running for office while still maintaining a full-time job. I'm still an independent agent. I'm still working with my clients, still fielding calls, complaints, handling renewals, trying to write some new business, maybe even too. And then at the same time, traveling all across the state of Oklahoma, going to speaking engagements, meetings, fundraising. It's a lot to juggle. And the hardest part about that truly is the time away from my family. I've got two young kids, 9 and 12 years of age. I've got a wife that would like to see her husband and have that life partner to help parent children. So being away from them is tough. And frankly, I've got to give a lot of credit to my wife. She's handled it amazingly well. And she's had to continually remind kids, okay, Dad's going to be here tonight. She knows my schedule better than I do, because she's having to tell the 9 and 12-year-old a few times throughout the day what to expect and when I'm going to be home and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the most fulfilling part has been getting across the state in this capacity. I travel all over the state of Oklahoma anyway. I've got clients in all 4 corners of Oklahoma. So the mileage component's not significantly greater. It is more, but not significantly. But traveling across the state for the purpose of meeting voters, hearing their concerns, advocating for our position and our platform, and getting the great responses that we've gotten from those people throughout the state that, hey, this guy really knows what he's talking about, and feeling their buy-in to our message has been fantastic.
That's great. I want to read something here. It literally just came across my desk here. There's a lobbyist here in Oklahoma. Don't need to say his name, but he's been battling cancer. He's the nicest guy in the world. Everybody loves this guy. And he's been doing a lot of natural treatments for a year, but the cancer's coming back. And I won't read the whole thing, but I'm going to read this paragraph. He says, my doctors recommended a new treatment option which applies chemotherapy directly to the tumor without the same level of systemic side effects. Our entire medical team was blessed to learn that I'm a candidate for this treatment, and I was scheduled to begin this week. However, we ran into hurdles with insurance, denying coverage. While we appeal their decision, we are moving forward with regular chemotherapy. This is the kind of stuff that just burns my ass. Beautiful men and women across this country that pay their bills, that expect the insurance companies to have their back. And it's not just health insurance. It's here in Oklahoma, what we're really dealing with the most is property and casualty insurance. Why don't you just hit on that a little bit. Like, why is Oklahoma paying the highest property and casualty rates in the country?
Yeah, I mean, so for a great many years, Oklahoma's had a very low touch, low contact regulatory environment. Our neighboring states, Arkansas, Texas, for example, require that the insurance commissioner approve rate changes, increase or decrease, that insurance companies want to put forth in the state and the premiums they want to charge. Oklahoma's been pretty laissez-faire in contrast, where insurance companies just tell the insurance commissioner what they're going to do because they've already done it. And we're happy to see that that's going to change starting in July of next year. The legislature took action with House Bill 3781, so we'll have the authority to push back and actually truly regulate insurance rates in the state. It's not a silver bullet by any means, but that is a big factor in why we're where we are in terms of insurance cost. Beyond that, Oklahoma does have weather, but I think we're paying a higher premium than is representative of the weather that we have and the losses that we incur and that are paid out by insurance companies year in and year out here in the state of Oklahoma. So what you measure matters. Yeah. And we're actually have the measuring stick starting next July in the state of Oklahoma. And I think with my background, working on the company side early in my career and seeing what actuaries do put forth to regulatory bodies throughout that process puts me in a great position to be that person to be holding insurance companies accountable for the state of Oklahoma.
And what percentage of your campaign contributions have come from insurance PACs and insurance executives?
Goose egg, man.
0.
We made the statement very early on that the conflict of interest that exists by taking money from insurance companies that it's my job to regulate is something we're going to completely avoid. There's a ton of precedent for it in the state's history. I think that's also partially why we're here, that facilitates a very cozy relationship between insurance companies and their regulator. And I anticipate we're going to have some difficult conversations with insurance companies in the next 4 years as insurance commissioner. And it's an ethical conflict that I don't want to have in my mind whatsoever. I don't want to have to go to sleep at night.
And I applaud you. I applaud you big time for that, because there's plenty of money to be raised from insurance executives, and you've rejected a lot of those contributions. And I'm not saying they're all bad actors. There's a lot of good people in the insurance industry too. But I applaud your ethics on that. And just want to point out for our listeners, his opponent, somewhere between 37 and 43% of his contributions from insurance executives and insurance PACs. And like I said earlier, he may or may not live in Arkansas, but we will move on here, keep this fun and lighthearted today. So Bob, thanks for answering those questions. This next, you know how this is. You go out and play 18 holes. You don't play real well. Want to play 9 quick ones, shotgun 9, emergency 9, whatever you want to call it. So 9 quick questions, quick answers. All right. Sooners or Pokes?
Pokes.
Early mornings or late nights? Though. Oh, your wife is? I didn't realize that she's a Sooner. Divided household.
Yeah, man. I married up in a lot of ways, and she likes to believe I married up by marrying a Sooner. But I'm an Oklahoma State grad.
How are the kids being raised? Are they? Where do they stand?
If either one of our teams are playing, our kids like to mess with us, and they'll wear the opposite team's jersey that day.
That's good.
Cowboys, my Sooner gear.
All right. Early mornings or late nights?
In campaign season, both. I like early mornings. I like to be the dew sweeper, but I also like fall golf, playing as the sun goes down.
All right. Favorite Oklahoma restaurant?
Man, I'm from Inola, man, and we've got the best barbecue restaurant in the world. Okay. Countryman Barbecue in Inola, Oklahoma. It's only open on Saturdays, 5 to 9 p.m. Come to Inola and get some amazing barbecue.
I think the folks in Wellston might fight you on that statement, but that's bold. I like it.
It is what it is.
I've not been to this. I've not been to Inola to eat barbecue, so we need to do that after the election. All right. Favorite Oklahoma politician of all time?
Man, of all time, I'm going to probably say former Governor Henry Bellman. Man was a statesman. Man brought together both sides of the aisle. He was a pragmatic individual, a very thoughtful individual, cared about the environment, cared about our state, and I think was a tremendous statesman.
You're the third of the 4 candidates that are being interviewed for this podcast, and all 3 of you have said Henry Bellman. I didn't have that on my bingo card. That's pretty cool. Okay, so you're campaigning to be the insurance commissioner, but what was the first job you ever had?
It's the first B2 job I had. I picked the driving range at the Coves Golf Club near where I live. But before that, I mowed lawns when I was, I think, 11, 12 years old.
All right. What's one word your spouse would use to describe you?
Confident.
I like it. All right. Okay, so Oklahoma historically, I mean, we punch above our weight when it comes to music. I mean, a lot of great artists, a lot of great bands. Who's your favorite Oklahoma musician of all time?
I'm probably going to have to say, probably have to be Blake Shelton, man. I love me some country music.
Nice.
And, throughout college, I went to a lot of Blake concerts.
Okay. If someone is coming to Oklahoma for the first time, what is one place that they must go and experience?
As a golfer, I'm going to say Karsten Creek.
Oh, yeah.
That course is magical, but as just
magical
a general,
or just hard as hell? I mean, which is it? I don't magical. Yeah, I mean, it is so stinking hard. I'm glad it's not rated because you never really keep score when you're there, right? I mean, you're always playing some kind of match and everybody struggles. So,
but I mean, beyond that, I mean, I think the gathering place here in Tulsa is a spectacular place that needs to be seen if you're coming to Oklahoma.
Yeah, very great public-private partnership to build that. Okay, so last question, the Golf and Politics podcast, we asked this to all of our guests. If you had to play, and you're the first one of the three, and I think you're the only one of the four that actually plays golf. So if you had to play one round of golf with a celebrity, a professional golfer, and a politician, living or dead, who would it be? And then also, what golf course are you doing it at?
Okay. I'm probably going to say General Eisenhower for the politician, just because growing up, that my grandmother and grandfather on my mom's side were huge Ike fans. Like there's a statue of him still at my mom's house from Mimi and Granddad.
Okay.
And he was a golfer. Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
For the celebrity, just because he's a stick.
Yeah.
And he's got an incredible testimony, and his recovery from addiction is just awesome to me. And golfer, man, I've been a Freddie Couples fan. I could watch that swing. It lives rent free in my head all the time. And I'd want to play Pebble.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, we appreciate you being on here. We're going to show everybody your campaign ad. You've been campaigning for months and months and months all over the state. And it comes down to how many people are going to see your ad before we get up there. And it's important. So any last things you want to say to the voters before we end the podcast?
Man, I think the voters need to know that they need a candidate for this office that's going to fight for them to make insurance fair again for the people in Oklahoma. And Bob Sullivan is the candidate to make insurance fair again for the state of Oklahoma.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Matt.
Insurance companies keep raising rates. Oklahoma families keep paying more. Bob Sullivan knows why.
I'm Bob Sullivan. I know the insurance company game, and I know how to fight back.
Bob Sullivan for Insurance Commissioner. Make insurance fair again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with John Pfeiffer, state representative from House District 38, running to be the labor commissioner in the state of Oklahoma. He's in a Republican primary runoff coming up here on August the 25th. John, thanks for joining us this morning. I know you've been crisscrossing the state in your pickup truck. How many miles have you put on so far?
So I reset my trip counter the day of filing, and we're around 26,500 and some hours, which is about 21 days of driving in the pickup altogether. So it's...
I mean, you're used to traveling. You represent one of the larger rural House districts in the state, but still, 77 counties is no joke.
This state's a lot bigger than we realize when you're driving from one side of it to another every day.
All right, well, before we talk politics, who are you when you're not in the legislature and not running for statewide office?
Yeah, I'm a farmer, rancher mainly. I live out here in a ranch outside of Mulhall, Oklahoma with my wife, Sierra, my son, Jack, and we've got another one on the way here into November, 1st of December. And we run registered Angus cows, and that's well, as you can see behind me, that's what we do, and that's what I like to do. And yeah, it's a lot of hard work, and it's a little stressful sometimes, like now when it doesn't rain. But it's a lot of fun and a good way to raise kids.
It's fantastic, and you're very humble about it. But you also served in the United States Marine Corps, and I just want to thank you for your service.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I served in the Marine Corps from 2009 to 2014 and deployed to Afghanistan in 2011. And so, yeah, got to do a lot of neat things, got to travel around to a lot of cool places. You know, spent 6 months, like I said, spent 6 months in Afghanistan, 6 months in Japan, a month in Alaska. Got to meet a lot of really, really good people. Enough times pass that you forget some of the bad things like field days and getting yelled at all the time. And just remember the good times and the friends. But yeah, it was parts of it were a lot of fun.
Now, this is before I was not working in Oklahoma at the time when you first decided to run for the state house, but it's my understanding that you started your campaign. You were getting out of the military, so you were still deployed when that happened. So just take us through what went through your mind when you decided I want to give back. I want to serve in elected office.
Yeah. Politics is something I'd always been interested in. My family's always been pretty involved in stuff, Farm Bureau, Cattlemen's Association, things like that. And giving back has always been important to us. So I was still stationed in Cherry Point, North Carolina at the time, and was Dale DeWitt, my predecessor, was terming out. And so I had some friends who worked in politics, and we talked about it, and I thought, well, I'm trying to transition out of the Marine Corps anyways. This will be a good thing. So I met with your predecessor out here at my parents' house, and we talked about it and worked through it. And my mom said, he's so weird, he has to be great at what he does. You need to hire Fallon. And swear to God, exactly what she said. So we did. And so I signed a contract and stuff and started planning out a campaign while I was still living in the barracks in Cherry Point. And then, and Obama was in the White House, so they were downsizing the military, and so I had to get my paperwork and everything approved to get out about 6 months early. And in typical government fashion, they screwed up and lost my paperwork, and my unit was gone, and I finally came to a point because it was about 2 or 3 days before I was getting out, and they still hadn't processed it. And so I called a friend who worked for Jim Inhofe, and I went and told the master sergeant after I did it, and the case. My field rep buddy said they'd look into it, and I went and told him, and he said, hey, I appreciate it, and I know what you're going to do, and everybody, because I'd served with these guys for a long time, and they were all real supportive, but he's like, listen, I know what you're going to do, but a lot of times politicians just slow things down in the Marine Corps. And 3 minutes after that, he got a call from some two-star general at headquarters Marine Corps and used a lot of language I can't use in the civilian world, but basically, I don't care who Corporal Pfeiffer is, get his paperwork, get him found, get him done, get him processed out today. And he hangs up the phone and he goes, who did you call? And I said, oh, just a buddy of mine who works for an Oklahoma senator. And he goes, which one? I said, Jim Inhofe. And he goes, okay. I said, oh yeah, and he's the ranking member on Senate Armed Services at the time. And he goes, okay, yeah, this explains a lot. So we got out, and it took us 2 days to drive home from North Carolina, and a week and a half later was filing day. And we filed and knocked doors, and yeah, so.
Incredible.
Just
Incredible.
moved straight into it.
All right, so, you're the fourth interview I've done. I've interviewed Gentner Drummond, who's running for governor. Everybody knows what the governor does. I've interviewed Bob Sullivan, who's running for insurance commissioner. I've interviewed Robert Franklin, who's running for superintendent of public instruction. You're running for labor commissioner. What on earth does the labor commissioner do in the state of Oklahoma?
Pretty much anything that the legislature didn't know what else to do with for the past 50 years, they stuck over at the labor department. It's got a really kind of odd collection of a bunch of stuff. And in its truest form, it's supposed to ensure and protect and enforce the state's labor laws. That's what it was constitutionally created for back in the day when we had, children working in coal mines and stuff like that. In 2026, it's not. Its mission's changed as the world's changed. Now it inspects boilers and elevators and amusement park rides. Does some occupational licensing, still does a lot of health and safety things, and still in charge of enforcing the labor laws, and also any workforce complaints an employee has against an employer. If you think your employer's not living up to your agreement, not paying you fairly, things like that, you bring all those kind of complaints to the labor department.
What's something about a political campaign that the average voter just doesn't understand?
Probably how tough it is on your family. I've got a pregnant wife and a 5-year-old at home, and I'm gone most nights of the week. So Sierra has to pick up a lot of slack, and thankfully my parents live very close, and her parents live pretty close as well, and so they're able to help. But that's just hard. And when you're not here to help with bath time, bedtime, stuff like that, and your wife's also working a full-time job, that gets a little stressful. And after 12 years of the legislature, I've gotten used to people saying rude things about me on Facebook. It still bothers my wife. She gets on and looks at the comments and gets all mad, and I tell her just to ignore it because that's just the world we live in now.
Right.
Politics. But how hard it is on the spouse and family and stuff is something that I sometimes think people don't always understand. I have no problem. I was a Marine. I served during the teacher walkout. You want to come yell at me, that's fine. That is 100% part of the job. But when you say crazy, outlandish, rude things on Facebook, my wife's going to read them and, makes her really upset. But
Understood.
hey, it's life we live in now.
Well, we've covered here what's difficult about a campaign, and also I would have to just say it's not easy raising money when you're running for an office like labor commissioner, because again, I don't think most people even know what the hell the labor commissioner does. But let's focus on the positive. What are some of the fun things that you have found putting 26,000 miles on your truck, driving around all 77 counties, and even serving in the legislature? What is rewarding? What's fun about public service?
I've got to meet all kinds of people from all over the state. And there really are a lot of good people. There's a lot of politically active people who vote but don't live their lives on social media. And so they're just happy to talk to you, figure out what you've done, what you want to do. And luckily on a down ballot race, I get to focus on some things that, I want the Labor Department to do, where we are as a state, the good things we've got going on, and what we can continue to make better moving forward. And so that's been nice. But getting out and meeting people, eating at a whole bunch of different restaurants. I mean, every little town's got a Mexican place or a cafe or a burger place. I mean, just getting to try out a bunch of stuff and drive around and talk to folks and meet them where they live. And by and large, most people, have been really nice about it and really fun and just want to talk and figure out, again, what the labor commissioner does and what I do. I've represented my district for 12 years, but outside my district, I wasn't that well known. So just getting out and meeting people and people really have a genuine interest in the people that are running for office. So yeah, who you are, what you've done, what you want to do, what kind of person you are has been nice. Getting to know that and getting to talk to them about it.
Well, this I wasn't planning to go this direction, but last night you had a debate with your opponent, televised debate, which did a great job. And I thought one of the questions was a really good question, one that I should have thought to ask you in our debate prep that I didn't. But it was a great question. And I think it was Trace asked, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the Labor Department, what would you change? And I think this is a great answer that you had. I mean, talk about this a little bit, because I think it's the most, while there's constitutional responsibilities that the Labor Department has to handle, I think this issue that you're going to reference here is the most important issue, one of the most important issues facing our state. So if you had a magic wand, what's one thing you'd change?
If I had a magic wand, I would bring 2 years ago, the legislature created the Oklahoma Workforce Commission and set it up as its own independent commission with an ability to hire a director. And I would bring that into the Labor Department. We have a workforce crisis in this state, as anybody who's tried to grow a business, move a business, hire anybody, whether it's here on our farm where we have trouble finding help, or a manufacturer in Broken Arrow, wherever it is, it's just hard to find people. And part of that's because our economy in Oklahoma is cooking along really hot. We're at 3% unemployment. For the most part, everybody who wants a job has a job. So it's in some ways it's a good problem to have, but we do have a workforce crisis here in the state. We have a bunch of different agencies that all pick around the edges of workforce, and the Workforce Commission was supposed to try to bring some of that stuff together along with a board of business people to figure out not only what jobs do we need to fill now, but what jobs are we going to need 5, 10, 20 years in the future, and how do we work with career tech, higher ed, K through 12 to make sure we have a trained workforce to take that job. There's absolutely no reason in the world we're paying a 6-figure salary to an independent agency director for something the labor commissioner can do. And since we've created that commission, they've hired a director, they've left, and they really haven't done anything. Back in 2020, it became quite apparent that we had a nursing crisis in the state of Oklahoma. The legislature worked hand in hand with career tech and higher ed, and we were able to solve that, and we started putting more trained healthcare professionals out into the workforce. If we can do it in nursing, we can do it in other things. We just need to get the work done. The Workforce Commission hasn't done that in 2 years. I'd like to bring that into the Labor Department, and I think my past experience in the legislature and they know me and know that I think that's something we can get done after I win. But bring that in and start making that, start trying to figure out where we need to go, and start breaking down some of these historic silos we've had. And I hate to call them bureaucracies, but that's what they are. I mean, these big walls between empires. Career tech and higher ed have been very, very territorial since their creation about what their jobs are. I know 10 years or so ago, we started letting Career Tech issue college credit for some of their classes, and higher ed threw a fit. Now, in my district, I've seen at the local level where, K through 12, Ponca City is a perfect example. Ponca City schools, Tonkwall schools, Newkirk schools, all work together with Pioneer Tech, work together with NOC and our university center, because they know they serve the community and they have workforce needs there. So how do we all work together to not only fill these workforce needs, but provide opportunities for these kids so they have good, well-paying jobs so they can raise a family here in the state of Oklahoma. If we can do it at the local level, we can do it at the state level. We just have to do it. And there's been some personnel changes at the top. We have a new regent of higher education in Oklahoma. A couple years ago, we hired a really good new head of Career Tech. So we've got the right people there. We just need somebody to bring them together and figure out how do we better work together and take it not only, from one or two spots in the state, but how do we take it system-wide? And remember that we're here not just to protect, our own little kingdom of power, but we're here to serve the people. We're here to help. We're here to help train a workforce. We're here to help kids figure out what they want to do with their lives, figure out how we can help get them training so they can get good, high-paying jobs and stay here in Oklahoma. When I first started running 12 years ago, the big talk and had been for years was the brain drain we have out of Oklahoma. Okay, everybody graduated, Oklahoma and then moved to Dallas, right? Well, that's not the case anymore. We're seeing a whole bunch of students from Dallas and North Texas come to OU and OSU to get their undergrad degrees. A whole bunch of them are staying in the state. We have the economy, we have the infrastructure and the jobs to keep them here. Now we've just got to figure out how we get those people trained and get them into these jobs so they can build a life here.
100%. I think you just made the case with that answer and with a lot of your answers last night on why a labor commissioner should remain a elected position. And I know there's been a push by our governor and others that a lot of these down ballot statewide offices, constitutional offices, he wants to make appointed by the governor and part of the administration. And I think that's a mistake. I think government that has to answer to the people and answer to the voters is good government. And while campaigns can bring a sense of nonsense, we get that. There's things that go on in campaigns that nobody likes. It's still important when you get elected labor commissioner, you're going to be answering to the people and face a re-election. So that's a good thing for the state. So
our friend Mike Osborne was really pushing that, and his reasoning was, it wasn't anything sinister or anything like that. He felt the labor commissioner should be appointed because he didn't think the people had a great understanding of what the labor commission did. And he's not wrong on that. What does the labor commissioner do is still the number one question I get asked on the campaign trail. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the solution to that is let's make it appointed. I think the solution to that is let's have a labor commissioner who does a better job telling the people what the labor commissioner does.
Absolutely.
And Mike's a friend, and it's funny because he called me. He's like, hey, I'm going to file this bill, and it's absolutely nothing personal against you. I'm going to vote for you. I think you're going to be a great labor commissioner.
And, I'm going to, and I lobbied Mike on that. I said, hey, bud, I'm a political consultant. I need more elected offices. You're taking away business. You're taking away.
And I did tell it, never in the history of Oklahoma we've taken things that used to be appointed and made them elected, but the people of Oklahoma have never taken away their right to elect something and given it to somebody else to appoint. I can't remember a single time in history that's happened because people like to have a say in who represents them and what they do.
Well, this will be after the election. I actually want to talk to you about this, but we don't have time to get into it this morning. But I'm from West Virginia, where we actually elect the agriculture commissioner. Oklahoma being an ag state, why? I don't know. We'll just leave that there. It's just an idea I've had of we elect everything else. Why don't we elect the ag commissioner also? But hey, this is I'm a golfer. The show's called Golf and Politics, and so a lot of times when I'm golfing, you get done, we want to go play another quick 9. So we're just going to 9 quick questions, short answers. This should be fun. First question: Sooners or Pokes?
Pokes.
Yeah, I see the shirt you're wearing. It's clear.
I live 30 minutes from Stillwater.
That's right.
That's an easy one.
I tell people all the time, if I grew up in Oklahoma, I would have definitely been an Oklahoma State fan, especially when OU, as a West Virginia guy, when OU abandoned the Big 12 with Texas, it makes it more difficult for me to cheer for OU.
Your life's better and it's easier being an OU fan, but it's tough being an OSU fan sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough being a West Virginia fan, too. I can promise you that. All right, early mornings or late nights?
Late nights. And I know that's weird as a farmer. I have no problem staying up and working until 2 or 3 in the morning, but anything before 6:30 in the morning is just miserable.
All right. Now, you said you've gotten to experience a lot of great restaurants across the state of Oklahoma. What is your favorite Oklahoma restaurant?
Ooh, that's a good one. Pete's Place in McAllister, I ate there, or in Krebs, I ate there last night, is unbelievable. There's actually a really good Mexican restaurant, I can't remember the name of it, in Ringling, Oklahoma.
Okay.
That we ate at one time. That was really good as well. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but yeah, those two spring to mind.
All right, favorite Oklahoma politician of all time?
Henry Bellman.
Oh my gosh, 4 for 4. All 4 of you answered Henry Bellman without any hesitation.
Billings is in my current House district. Henry Bellman was a farmer, Marine, and an overall great guy.
Yeah.
It's funny, Henry Bellman was the first Republican that my grandpa said he ever voted for. And in the cattle business, Henry was a great politician. He had a little trouble keeping track of money. He wasn't good with his own personal money, apparently, according to my grandpa. And he always said, you always take a check off Henry's wife. Don't ever take a check off Henry, but always vote for him.
All right, so you're campaigning to be the labor commissioner. What was the first job you ever had doing labor?
Farming and ranching. I started driving a tractor at 7. I've worked my whole life. So yeah, I don't know exactly when you start, and it's probably lucky that farms are exempted, especially family members are exempted out of some of those child labor laws, or else we wouldn't be able to operate. But yeah, I started feeding cows and stuff and helping my dad do chores my whole life. I grew up in a feed pickup and started driving a tractor at 7 years old, and I've always worked.
What is one word that Sierra would use to describe you? We're both blessed to be married to redheads, so you know.
Yeah, unorganized, I think, especially this time. She gets real mad that I don't get all of my stuff put on the calendar always. Luckily, during the campaign, we've had to get a little better at that. Yeah. I'd like to say smart or handsome, but knowing Sierra...
You say that, unorganized, but I also have found you to be one of the most diligent public servants that serves the Capitol. You don't seek headlines. You're not trying to make big splashes on social media and cause unnecessary fights to draw attention to yourself. You just quietly go about the work of leading in the House of Representatives. And, I would venture to say that John Pfeiffer knows more about what's going on in state government than just about anybody in the state of Oklahoma. And so I think that you're kind of one of these underrated guys that isn't flashy. You're not out there seeking the spotlight, but yeah, it's always going to be unorganized running a statewide campaign on a shoestring budget. So,
Well, and it's important to remember what Ronald Reagan said, right? It's amazing what we can accomplish when we don't care who gets the credit.
Yeah.
And that's what I've tried to focus on, just doing the work. But, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So Oklahoma historically punches way above its weight when it comes to music. Especially just the Stillwater music scene, for instance, where you went to college. A lot going on there. A lot's come out of Oklahoma. So, who's your favorite Oklahoma musician or band of all time?
Cross Canadian Ragweed. I played a lot when I was in college. I would say the Great Divide, but I'm not sure they're all from Oklahoma. But Cross Canadian, Turnpike Troubadours, like all those. Turnpike Troubadours was a little college band when I was in school. I remember somebody found something a year or so ago where we were putting on some concert for that College of Ag, and Turnpike was like the second act behind our buddy Clint's band, and it was just 2 guys who played the guitar. But so they've been around. Oklahoma, Stillwater's had a really cool red dirt music scene for a long time. But yeah, all of those guys, Stone of the Rue. There was all kinds of stuff, and it was a fun place to go to college, which is why it took me so long to graduate.
All right, if someone's coming to Oklahoma for the first time, what is one place that they must experience?
So Sierra went to school out of state and grew up in Texas, so when her friends come and visit, we always take them to Ishans. Ishans is a can't miss. Good fried chicken and okra and beer and cool atmosphere. Anytime that, she has friends from all over the country come over and stay, we always take them to Ishans.
All right, so this is a show about golf and politics. So last question is a question we ask to every single guest that's ever been on our show. If you had to play golf with a politician, a celebrity, and a professional golfer, who are the 3 that are rounding out your foursome? Living or dead?
Living or dead. Politician, Teddy Roosevelt, just because he was such a, I mean, he grew up in a city but loved rural America. I always like how he kind of had this cool way of making friends from all different forms of life and bringing them together, which I tried to do and always thought was pretty neat. So Teddy Roosevelt, politician, you said celebrity? Or no,
Yeah, politician, celebrity, and professional golfer.
Celebrity, golly, that's a tough one. Professional golfer. What was the kid who played at OSU?
Ricky Fowler?
Ricky Fowler would be my professional golfer. And then celebrity, boy, I don't know. Can I count Winston Churchill as a celebrity?
Sure, there you go. 2 politicians in the group, huh?
I don't watch a lot of movies. Or Chris Pratt, maybe. I don't know. He
Okay.
seems like a cool guy. But Ricky Fowler.
Also a politician now, right? You know.
Ricky Fowler would be cool. And then I didn't realize he married that girl who was in all those high jumping posters that everybody had in the walls of their dorm rooms and fraternities when I was in school. So that, give us something to talk about.
There you go. Well, John, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're super busy trying to get out and get every vote you possibly can before Tuesday. We're going to close this out by showing your TV ad. You campaign 26,000 miles all around the state, and then, we boil it down to a 15-second TV ad and try to get people's attentions. Anything you want to say about your TV spot before we air it?
Other than what does Labor Commissioner do, the second most asked question is how do we pronounce your name, Pfeiffer or Pfeiffer? And so we figured, since we were getting asked that anyways, we'd make a commercial about it. Yeah, I think it turned out well and upbeat, catchy, and a lot of fun.
Well, John, it's an honor to work with you, and thanks for taking the time today.
Of course.
How do you say this guy's name? Pfeiffer?
Pfeiffer? Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer.
Honestly, I don't know.
I just know that John Pfeiffer fights for Oklahoma jobs.
John Pfeiffer for Labor Commissioner. Funny name, serious conservative.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Dr. Robert Franklin, candidate for Oklahoma Superintendent of Public Instruction. Robert, thank you for joining us, taking 10 minutes out of your time. I know you're out on the campaign trail working incredibly hard. It's nice and cool in Oklahoma, though, right?
I was going to say, if you see sweat dripping off of me, you know where we're out here in the middle of getting after it, right in the August heat, baby.
Hey, look, I mean, I have to take on more campaigns because I just got my electric bill, and it is unbelievable.
You got to pay the bills too.
It's not because our electric rates are too high. It's just that it's so stinking hot. 105 today here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But hey, Robert,
it really makes you appreciate your HVAC technicians as well, doesn't it?
Big time. I know for sure that's a job that I don't want, but we might get into this because this is a campaign issue. There's a need for more good HVAC folks. They make pretty good money, especially in places like
very
Oklahoma.
Good money. They work hard, but they make very good money.
Well, before we get into politics, let's just, who are you if you weren't running for office?
My goodness, I'd be a lecturing professor at the University of Oklahoma in Tulsa, a dream job that I've always thought about. But more importantly, I'm Poppy to a little 8-year-old grandson and 4-year-old granddaughter that, I mention their names. I get all kind of gushy. It's the best part of my life. It's great. Yeah.
That's great.
Love it.
Fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit about the moment that you started to think about, I'm going to run for statewide office. You don't have a political background. You've never run for office before. What made you decide I'm going to run for a statewide elected office for the superintendent of public instruction?
Yeah, and Matt, and to your consulting teams, I'm not a very good candidate. Sometimes I don't say it the way perhaps a good candidate might. It may not have been the way that it might have all looked if I'd have been long linked at this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we had retired from Tulsa Tech and then transitioned into this particular role. And again, a dream part of our lives. I've made mention and laugh kind of jokingly that we made our final house payment on our mortgage about 4 months ago. And so living our best lives. And then we got a call from Rob Miller, who just simply said, because I have been running so hard, and I know, Robert, you've been a really strong candidate for me, but I just can't go anymore. My wife has unexpectedly passed, and at least consider what this might look like if you jump back in. And then I had a couple of other colleagues that are really trusted people started calling and asking and saying, Robert, we need somebody who has a voice that can help us to see if we can't get a seasoned politician out of there and get a seasoned educator in there. And so with that said, we talked hard and long and finally made a decision, like I think the day before filing. I think that's kind of when we finally landed.
I remember having a conversation with you late in the game, and I'll be honest. Like I was working for Rob Miller and wanted to see Rob Miller win. And when he dropped out, I felt like the public education crowd needed a voice in this arena. And that's coming from somebody that's a private school father. I'm very unashamed to send my child to a private Christian school. I actually like the tax credit. I'm going to go ahead and just start with a question. Some have said just because you're a pro-public education person that you're anti-private school and that you want to get rid of the tax credit. Is that true or not?
Yeah, take the air out of that balloon, Matt. Take the air out of that balloon. I've just simply said, I just think before we expand it further, we just need to study it and see what our real goals are and what our real outcomes that we'd like to see. Much like any other data specialist would say from a scholarly perspective, are we getting the results that we wanted? And if indeed we're not, the question is, well, what is it that we thought we were going to seek from this? And so I'm just simply saying, I'm not trying to say, let's take it away. I'm just simply saying, let's just study it before we expand it. Make sure we're targeted. I don't like the way sometimes it's being distributed. I don't like the way it's being distributed.
That seems wise. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anytime that you have some kind of a major government expenditure, looking at the data and seeing what is working and what's not and how you can make it better is a smart place to be. And so I think that's a very, very thoughtful place for you to land on that. But as you're crisscrossing this state, 77 counties, it's a big state geographically. What is the hardest part about running for office? And then also, what's been the most fun at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to meet different people from different parts of the state. But what's interesting is the dichotomy of what hope looks like and what frustration looks like. In some groups, you're talking, and it's all about the hope and the anticipation that perhaps we can get ourselves moving in the right direction. And in other groups, depending upon the context that we're in, it's many who've said it's hopeless. And so that dichotomy of hopelessness versus complete hope is fascinating to me. And so, trying to be an ambassador of saying to those that are hopeless and saying we're giving up on public education, to say, give us a chance. Give us an opportunity and let us show you how a seasoned leader can go about some strategic thoughts and bring people together. And for those that are just completely hopeful, to say, let's be vigilant about voting, but let's also be methodical about making sure that we know that this is not going to be what we do in one day. It's what we're going to have to do daily that changes everything. So anyway, that's just the dichotomy of it that I think is fascinating. It's a little bit of a heavy lift, but it certainly makes it easier when people lean in and say, okay, tell me what we can do to help. And that's the encouraging part.
Absolutely. Well, what's something about politics or campaigning, now that you've been doing this since April, what is something about campaigning that, you really had no idea of before you started and your eyes have gotten bright-eyed that's been difficult?
Yeah. And, you see it from afar, you kind of watch it and you remark about it when you're not in the arena. You remark about how ugly and divisive it has become over the years. But boy, when you get in the arena, it's really, really difficult. And so, Matt, I would say from a place of everybody who gave advice to say, is your family good to go here? Finally, when my wife acquiesced and said, okay, well, then we'll give it a go. But if it doesn't work this time, you promise that you'll never do this again. It's been really hard on Sandy because she's a warrior. She's a warrior for me, yeah. And she's a warrior for public education. But boy, when people begin to be what you consider to be disrespectful, but they begin to tear at your faith, call you names, be disrespectful, that they've never met you before or never even given you an opportunity to have a conversation with them. She's that old English teacher that wants to make sure that they know you can't do that. You can't say those kinds of things without some context, without some connection. And so on August 7th, she gave herself on her birthday a gift to say, I'm getting off of the social media. We'll put that behind. Seriously, I mean, listen, it's the only thing. Smart. It's the only thing that's helped her because it was, and it's no wonder, Matt, that we struggle with young people and teenagers, particularly if they're having a breakup among one another and all of a sudden they're getting all these pieces of feedback that are negative, that are coming at them, and the stress that it produces and the unnecessary pieces that come along. It's no wonder we didn't want young people to have cell phones on in schools and the distractions that come along with it. But the adults are not setting very good examples, which is really, really kind of an interesting dynamic. So I guess we've learned that lesson, that adults sometimes don't set good lessons for young people.
100% true. I tell you, it's the thing that I like the least about my job is just how combative it's become on social media. Now, it's always going to be rough and tumble. Yes. We're talking about serious issues, but the absolute pettiness, and then just dealing with false information that's out there. It's rampant,
no doubt,
no
doubt. Well, and again, as a high school principal, it was pretty common to not be real popular sometimes with students, not be real popular with parents sometimes, not be real popular with teachers sometimes. So you're like, okay, who are we winning with here? But I get that, and I know what that feels like, and it's tough work to be in school leadership positions. So I understood that going into it. I just didn't know how personal it would get and how much it would affect my family. But other than that, we've met some really cool people, and we've been so surprised by how many people have been so hopeful and been so supportive, and that's been really encouraging, and that makes me proud.
That's great. So now I'm your political consultant, and Jared, my business associate, has been working directly on your campaign, and so here's your chance to get even. If we've given you bad advice that you want to show the world that we haven't always been perfect in our advice, but what's the worst advice that either Jared or I have given you, or somebody on the outside's given you for this campaign?
Oh, okay. Listen, let me pull this card out because it's so fresh, and it's the reason I've got bags under my eyes. The Oklahoma ethics report stuff is really not that big a deal. You just got to stay on top of it. You can manage that pretty well. Holy smokes. That software program is antiquated. It is a pain in the tail. That ought to be a consulting service that you provide for free. Oh my lands, that is a pain in the tail. Oh my gosh. I wish I would have known better about that one.
It is. Yeah. And it was supposed to be an upgraded system this year. I mean, we had a real mess with the Ethics Commission in last December before you were a candidate. They were switching over to a new system, and they just actually completely failed. They had to fire the vendor. We went back to the old system.
Gosh.
It's been kind of a mess for this whole election.
Well, I mean, when you all said, yeah, it's pretty manageable, you just stay on top of it. Yeah, I wish you would have been a little more detailed about what you meant by staying on top of it meant. It's like doing your taxes times 4, except you can't move any files electronically. It's brutal.
Good to know. We'll do better on our end on that one.
All right.
What's the biggest misconception that people have about Robert Franklin?
Goodness gracious me. I guess it's according to what and compared to whom that you might ask that question. For those who don't know me and have read some things online that some of the opponents have cast out there and been really ugly and disrespectful about, I think it's about that I'm very much a person of faith, and that stings. And what I say is oftentimes when people of faith begin to try and compare somebody else's status of faith against one another, I think we push more people away from our faith than we bring to it. That is distressing to me. Absolutely. Because I think that's at a very core piece. For those that do know me, I think it's, the question that they ask is, okay, so why do you think that you can make a difference, Robert? This is crazy because you're a person who's positive in your tone. You're a collaborator by very nature. You're having to play this politics. How are you going to do that? And I think they forget sometimes that just because you're kind and engaging doesn't mean you know how to do heavy lifting and know how to get to work. And so that, I guess those two pieces would be, I wish people knew a little bit more about that, but here we are.
Well, I tell you, I as a Christian myself, I'm very thankful for the way that you've handled that on the campaign trail.
Thank you.
I think that it doesn't do the gospel, the proclamation of the gospel, any favors when we try to force it down people's throats through the public schools. And I think you said it best in the debate recently. We're asking teachers to teach kids algebra and history and language arts. It's not their job to lead our children in their faith walk.
Yeah, it's our whole country's premise. It's our whole country's premise. Yeah, I couldn't have believed it any more strongly than to say that's your family and your faith. Yeah.
Yeah, and the harshest critics that we have on your campaign and some others is from folks that are very quote unquote religious, and instead of building relationships and sharing the gospel with people, it's like we want to just jam it down everybody's throat through the public square with other people's tax dollars.
Well, and historically,
that give more money to your church, do more evangelism, do more mission trips. But let's
Matt,
how about our kids learn how to read?
How about we start with that? But I will also say this, that your care for others is the measure of your greatness, and so. We've got opportunities to do great things, and I think our faith leaders and our churches do some amazing things and continue to do that work. And we just need to make sure that those folks are celebrated, and we don't try to entangle the government in their work and vice versa. So I think we can do this work collaboratively and supportively without trying to tangle that up in the public schools.
All right, last question before we get into a very quick shotgun 9. Last question is, finish this sentence. If I become the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, I hope people eventually say I was the kind of elected official who, finish the sentence.
Yeah, who demonstrates that kindness and collaborative spirit can actually elevate learning outcomes and bring people to the table and rebuild a workforce of teachers and educators that perhaps pulled us out of a place that we didn't think we could get out of. I hope that's what they'll say.
I love it. That's fantastic. All right, so shotgun 9 questions. Then you're playing golf and you play a bad round, maybe in with your buddy having a beer, and you're like, Let's go play another quick 9 holes. That's what we're going to do here. 9 holes, very fast questions. All right, first question. Sooners or Pokes?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm Sooners. Yeah, but now listen, I can cheer for the Pokes, just not when they play the Sooners. But I definitely am a Sooner guy.
You got to give the political answer. I get it.
Okay.
All right,
okay.
Early
okay.
mornings or late nights?
Hey, listen, I'm all in. I go at it both ways. Get up early. As long as I've got my shoes on, I'm legit. Put my shoes on first thing in the morning, take them off last thing at night. But I can go till 2 or 3 o'clock if I've got my shoes on in the morning at night. But as soon as the shoes come off, I'm done. So keep them on and I can go all day, all night.
Favorite Oklahoma restaurant?
Listen, somebody else asked me this, and I did a cheap response, and it goes like this. So I live out on Highway 412 going between Sand Springs and Stillwater. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but we live kind of in a neighborhood that is tucked up in the woods. But just down the street, there's this little gas station that has this amazing pizza. I'm a pizza guy. So it's the gas station pizza at Joe's. It's one of my favorites. I love that place. I really do.
Go.
It's the go-to.
All right.
Gas station pizza.
Favorite Oklahoma politician of all time?
Probably Henry Belbin. Yeah, Henry Belbin.
Henry Belbin. You are campaigning to be the superintendent, but what was your first job that you ever had?
Oh, I've told this story many times, Matt, and I've been a babysitter. I used to babysit in Stillwater in the trailer park where we lived. There's lots of children that lived there. I was probably a 7th grader and 8th grader, and there were kids all around, and I used to babysit all the time, and that's how I'd make money. That and mowing lawns. I would mow lawns and babysit, and people thought, man, that's kind of weird for an 8th grade guy to babysit kids. But we did a lot. And I was good at it.
That's good. Yeah. Prepares you for a career in education.
That's true.
What's one word?
Hey, can I tell you my worst job? Can I tell you the worst job I ever had?
Oh, yeah.
Can I tell you the worst job?
Yeah.
Worst job I ever had, working over at a concrete plant at Jinx. A buddy of mine was dating a girl whose dad owned a concrete plant. And we literally, on a weekend, we had to jackhammer concrete out of the back of one of those big round mixing trucks. It was the worst job I ever had. Worst job.
The guys that work on road construction and concrete, that's some heavy duty labor right there. A lot of respect for those
guys. We had no earplugs, no eyeglasses, no face mask, nothing. We just going at it.
All right, what's one word your wife would use to describe you?
Golly, I would say devoted and relentless. That's 2 words, but we'll take it. We'll take a double shot.
Yeah, relentless. I had relentless in my mind. I figured relentless or passionate would be one of the 2 words.
Yeah, there you go.
I think of.
Yeah.
All right, next question is, Oklahoma is kind of known for punching above its weight when it comes to music. Great artists, great bands. Who's your favorite Oklahoma musician or band of all time?
Gosh, well, I mean, it'd be hard pressed because we're just really close to Owasso here on 169 where I'm sitting right now, and so it's hard to pass up on Garth. I mean, he's pretty legit. Carrie Underwood, because I went to elementary. Hey, Carrie Underwood, I went to Shakota, and I lived in Shakota when I was in elementary school too. So Carrie's not bad either.
Okay. All right. If someone's coming to Oklahoma for the first time, what is the one place you think they absolutely need to experience?
Man, golly, Moses, that's a great question. I would say come to my summer camp that's located just between Guthrie and Edmond, and we'll show you how real service to other human beings can look and work and include other folks that are disabled. I would say come to my camp at Camp Twin Cedars, just right off of I-35, just between Guthrie and Edmond.
All right, last question. And this is a show called Golf and Politics. So I asked this question to every one of my guests. If you had to play a round of golf with a politician, a celebrity, and a professional golfer, living or dead, who fills out the rest of your foursome? Who are those 3 people?
Oh, golly, mercy. Could we have Will Rogers in there just for fun? Because I think he would be great. He's not really a politician, but kind of a... Yeah, I think he would be great.
Yeah.
My mom, God rest her soul, she was a big OSU fan, and she always loved Ricky Fowler. So I think put Ricky Fowler in there in honor of my mom, because she's one of his biggest fans. And know this, I don't play golf hardly at all or very well at all. So Ricky could probably up the game. And then you'd said a politician perhaps in there. Perhaps, I know this sounds kind of like a throwback, and I'm trying to be trying to placate to the Republican base. But I think Ronald Reagan would be kind of an interesting character because I think he had kind of a quick wit about him, and I think he'd be kind of fun to pick his brain on things.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to leave folks with your TV ad, and you do all this campaigning across all 77 counties, meeting after meeting, fundraising calls after Republican club meetings and debates, and oftentimes it comes down as voters are making their mind up. They see an advertisement. It's really important. Before we show your ad to our viewers, what's the last thing that you want to say on why people should vote for Robert Franklin on August 25th?
No ifs, ands, or buts. It's about the experiences that we've been doing over the last 45 years. If you're going to compare resumes, you have to, I think, let me just say it this way. Let me draw an analogy because I speak in analogies a lot. If you're going to build a dream home, Matt, and anyone else that I know that's going to build a dream home, you're going to hire a builder who has done that work before and has done that work that you could go look at rather than someone who can just swing a hammer. So I would say look at the experience and then make decisions.
Robert, thank you very much. And everybody, go vote August 25th.
You're here.
If you are
You're here. All right,
Republican
buddy.
in the state of Oklahoma. All right, thank you.
I appreciate you, buddy. All right, bye now.
Appreciate you too.
I'm Robert Franklin. I've spent 44 years in Oklahoma public education. Politicians got us to 50. It's time for a teacher, a seasoned education leader. I'm Robert Franklin, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Vote Robert Franklin for State Superintendent.